This is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
In a lot of ways, David is the most ordinary person in the world. And in a lot of ways, he's also a very extraordinary person. I think he tries to be uncomplicated. You know, he tries to keep his life as simple as he can, but obviously there are things going around in his head that are not simple.
As I like to say, our relationship transcended a marriage and became this great friendship. And so I really do know him, but I wouldn't ever want to put words in his mouth. And you probably aren't going to get them out of his mouth, so there.
I'm going to try.
Good luck.
Getting out of the Marine Corps and what to do, what to do. I was traveling with my friend Harold, went to Europe, and we got to see some art, some real art. One trip we bought rail passes, and we're in Europe for about 5 weeks traveling around, and it was actually studying art. The major goal was to hit every art museum we could, all over Europe. It's something that I have to do. It's like a nervous itch that you gotta scratch. I have no control over it. I have to do it. It's a love. Yeah, it's a love of creating something. I think it's something along that line. It's a love of creating and a have to thing, I have no choice, I have to do it.
He was at West Virginia Tech and he was on a football scholarship, but he had received a number of letters from his friends in Vietnam, enough information to know what was going on over there and, how hard and horrible it was. And then he did this heroic thing where he thought he should be there helping them or with them. And so he and he would tell it, I thought I was failing math. Well, I think he was getting a C. And he was one of the first string football players for Tech. I mean, he was there on a full ride scholarship. And he I don't even know if he finished the semester, but he went and signed up to be a Marine.
I was in country in Vietnam for 10 months.
The Tet Offensive started. You were in Da Nang, and the first rocket came in.
Yeah, I was in 68, 69, yeah. I was in Da Nang.
Yeah.
I was walking my post, and when they started, they were going to take the base.
Yeah.
They hit the fuel pit, the bomb dumps, yeah. And when they hit one of those big fuel tanks, huge tanks, and this was almost a mile away. And it knocked me flat on my ass. If you ever heard a round go over your head,
yeah,
it sort of snaps, yeah. like a little that sound barrier.
Because I know there are some paintings that are a little darker, a little that I look at and I feel
There's a couple of pieces that I did when I first got back that were actually pretty dark.
Yeah.
And it was like yeah. So Yeah. Well,
Think it-
Vietnam wasn't a good place to be. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I was young and naive, so
Yeah.
I'm glad I survived it and got back,
Yeah.
like a lot of people didn't. But I got back, and I got back in school, and that was important. I used a GI Bill, got back in school, went to state. I continued my art, and you know, it was good. That's
Yeah.
and moved to Poker River, and
Yeah.
He needed the trailer was very good for him. It was a great spot. You know, that was his trailer. It was, again, a safe space. I mean, he had this space where he could be and do exactly what he wanted, and that was what he needed. And that was post-Vietnam, and that was really where he lived during his schooling. He went to state and finished his degree. And it was a well-known fact that on Saturdays, Harold would arrive with a case or two of the cheapest beer in the world. And Harold and who else was? Clinton Pauley and Herb Durr and David would just spend Saturday at the trailer.
a great place actually to live. I love living on Poker River. Yeah, and eventually I painted the vines on the trailer, which went all the way around, and the trailer was an inexpensive place to live. Yeah. And I lived there for 19 years in the trailer, which is pretty cool, actually.
He is truly deeply of West Virginia. And one thing he told me, I remember this when we met, he said, more people in West Virginia per capita own houses. He said, because there's trailers. And it was really a point of pride. You know, I own a place to live.
It really speaks about self-reliance, that you get by with what you can, with little you have. And there's that dedication and tenacity and that type of lifestyle that a lot of people don't understand. It's a 1960 style trailer where he merges the idea of fantasy and reality into one. In fact, you look at his work and it's kind of imaginative, but it's real.
Oh, jeez.
I never understood artist statements. You know, I think a lot of people become artists because they're nonverbal. We don't ask novelists to illustrate their novels. You don't ask a jazz musician why he went from G minor to A sharp, you know. Why do you ask people who are nonverbal to explain their art? The viewer has a responsibility also when they come to an exhibit.
What he created was very personal. I think his space, his studio, was a metaphor for creativity and longing. The trailer was the safe haven from the outside world. The outside world is the world he, not necessarily Appalachia, but beyond. And he was very comfortable portraying the trailer, the vines. I mean, it's right there. He just repurposed it into his own personal iconography. And even though it seems to read immediately Appalachia or regional, he transcends it to a unique level, a very innovative personal level.
Meanwhile, I think he views the trailer sort of maybe just a little bit tongue-in-cheek, like I live in a trailer and I'm going to use this as my subject and this is what my artwork is going to be about. For a long time, it's about the trailer. Yeah, his home.
And then they built this huge trailer park next to his trailer. And he kind of made a surrealistic landscape of it, I think. He did several versions of it. One of them is at Taylor Books now.
It really says a lot. I think he effectively combined a lot of his personal imagery and his views, whether they were political, environmental, or personal, into one cohesive but yet very chaotic scene. The lighting was surreal.
Oh, he had a dog named Star.
Amazing animal. He did a couple amazing things. Actually, he went in front of me. He was my snake dog. He was very protective. But he was Irish setter and Norwegian elk hound.
He loved Star, and Star went everywhere with him, everywhere. You know, he didn't leave home without Star.
You know, maybe David was a little bit like Star in that way. I'm not sure. I mean, you know, Star was a little bit of a loner. David was kind of a loner. They came together. I don't know if he identified through the dog.
And a couple of things he did that were amazing. He's a very cool animal. One time I was walking out Harvey Creek, we were walking down the holler, and he was several feet, maybe 5 or 6 feet in front of me. And he come up on the groundhog, and he just snatched it behind the collar like, and started shaking. I'm going, Star, let it go. And so he put it down, and the groundhog was a bit stunned. So we just sort of walked by. He was a bigger dog. He probably was 14, 15 years old. He was getting skinny, and he was, so, yeah. And I'm sure he had cancer. He wandered off, and I knew he was gone. I did a couple of paintings, but one is a crane there, and I was in a trailer, and I dug a hole, like the crane was lifted the trailer up like a grave, and they were dropping the trailer in the hole with me in the trailer, dead, you know, it was like the casket. And Star was large in the background. Of course, he always was large in the background.
David did the painting again, and this time it was all black.
Star was bones, and the trailer was just the framing of it. All the skin was off of the trailer.
Yeah, and I think he did a couple of those paintings. A great big one of the bones wrapped around the trailer, but then he did a smaller one too. And I think he did that work with the bones, his bones, Star's bones, for maybe a year or two before he got it out of his system. When he did those surreal works with, you know, with the ribbons running through the cars and the ribbons running through whatever, you know, it was telling me, when I look at it, that he was trying to figure out what he was all about. You know, where am I going from here?
I think it was the vines that were really dominant in his work, where I think the one painting which shows it wrapped around the trailer just like a shroud. And then you can see barely the kitchen windows with warm orange color, as like this is something's going on inside the trailer, and you know it's Dave working hard at his work. And it was and the outside world is murky, dark, and foreboding. And this vine is all over.
It's the kudzu. I think he was intrigued by the shape, you know, just like he does with these tree things that he does. For a lot of years, he just did pieces of vines that were big, and we would sell them, and people loved them. But he got tired of doing them. So we would say to David, when are we going to have more vines? When are we going to have more vines? And he said, I'm not doing it anymore. He doesn't create for the public, and he doesn't create to sell his work. He creates for himself.
Eventually I bought the property out Harvey's Creek, and I built a log house out there, and I sort of went back and forth.
70 acres out at Harvey's Creek in Lincoln County. He split it with a wonderful neighbor. And then he picked the parcel that is so far up the hill that so much of the time you can't get a vehicle up there because the back tires slip and you just can't get up there. And what he said was, I wanted to go away. When I came home, I wanted to go away. I wanted to crawl into a cave and be somewhere else. And I think that was a light for him. I think he needed that. I think it was really important.
You have to park at the bottom of the mountain, and then you have to hike up. And when you get there, it's amazing. It's all built from recycles, whatever he could find. We used to gather out there once a year. And we'd all bring food, and we'd spend the day, and we'd hike through the woods, and David would take us through the woods and show us all his treasures that he found, you know, a vacant cemetery or a wild herd of goats or whatever. And we would all spend the day and have a grand time. Yeah.
That's always been way back in the back of my mind, the adventure of it all, the coming from down there up here, and then it's sort of getting away and seeing different things, and it's like going through that mirror, that bubble. You see that bubble burst. I did a painting of living on the edge of a burst. And it's a global thing, but doing something, painting or an idea of West Virginia children's story, you know, for example, you know, just things have happened up here.
I remember, you know, we were taking a walk to our normal, we called it the top of the world because it's, you know, the big field, big clearing. And we were taking a walk up there, and all of a sudden we hear something in the woods, and we're like, what? And I just remember this, there was like, you know, it was, everything was still, and then all of a sudden it was just like, we saw this horse. Oh. And the horse came right up to us, and then it followed us, and it was very friendly. Yeah. And
it's like a puppy dog. It wasn't like very tame.
It was very tame. It was so weird because it was random on the mountain. And then it followed us to the clearing, and Mom and the horse ran around the clearing. And while we watched, they ran. I remember like seeing them run together, and then it followed us back down to the house.
Oh yeah, we almost had to shoo it away.
Well, and it wanted to come in the house.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, do you remember that?
Yeah.
It wanted to come in the house. It was sticking its head into the door of the house, into the front door, and we were feeding it Cheez-Its. Yeah, we fed it Cheez. It loved.
Of course, we had Cheez-Its. Yeah, favorite dessert.
Yes.
But stuff like that is just sort of amazing. That a lot of people haven't seen.
I think David is very interested in what can happen, you know, what might happen. And if nothing happens, it's going to be a nice little rowboat ride. And if something happens, it's going to be a lot more exciting. And yeah, when I think about David with nature, he is always waiting and looking for the unexpected. He's really patient.
Yeah, the pond down there, it stays muddy all the time. And I think the deer get in there and swim. I swear to God. Because it never clears up. On one of our walks out Harvey Creek, Nora and I found this car. It was a long walk. It was on Climbers Creek, I think, back on the hill in a field. And it'd been sitting there long enough to sink the tires into the ground, almost like halfway up. And it was almost on the ground. Eventually I painted it, and it's carved out of polyurethane is the foundation for the carving out of the painting.
growing up for me, it was like, okay, I had friends with parents that did nothing like what you and mom do, right? It was lawyers, doctors, whatever it may be.
9 to 5.
For me, that was like, my parents are different, first of all. And with mom too, I think like that was the calling. Like, we'd make it work because we love what we do.
Yeah, you're going to do it no matter what. And I think it was when you started the school, and I needed to make some money. I needed to start making some money because I wasn't contributing enough to the family. So I had to sort of go off and start finding something to do. You know, like using all your skills to make a living.
Yeah, he is an amazing parent. And I think for a long time, you know, I think I won't say it weighed on him. I think he was conscious of it.
I won the juried exhibition three different times, which was $3,000 prize. And, you know, it helps, but it doesn't. It's thin. It goes thin real fast. And I won several awards locally and small shows and stuff. But I learned quickly to do something else to make money. I'm not saying it's impossible, and probably in some cases it's very possible. It won't. Oh, I like doing other things, so even mowing grass or weeding. I feel, and another thing I think about is this exercise, you know. I feel like I'm getting paid to exercise instead of going to, my brother goes to the rec center in South Charleston, works out. I get to work. I get paid and I work out. Actually, I like my life the way it is. I don't know if I would really want to be make money painting. I don't. Yeah, and I think to myself, I'm going, I don't know if anybody could actually afford my work. You know, all the time I've spent, even if it was minimum wage, I would just like be losing.
I think he really covered his work. I think it was his babies. I don't know if he was very interested. I mean, he needed money any job to get by to make his work. That's understandable. But he put a lot of effort and time into his work. And prices, of course, in Charleston are far less when you buy art than they are in other markets because people didn't have the funds. I mean, anything over $2,000 was very expensive for West Virginia collectors, except for what I can count on my hand that could afford to buy works above that level. So he didn't want to really short sell his work.
Well, you know, I think artists are basically private. And for me, myself, I wouldn't call myself different, but I'm also an artist. I also can sell art, and I also am a big advocate for the arts, which a lot of artists, you know, if you take those three together, they're not. They're either artists, or they're this, or they're that, but there's not a combination of them. And it's very unusual, not to say that I'm unusual, but it's just that I grew up in a family of 10. I'm one of 10. So you had to do for yourself. and you had whatever you wanted you had to do for yourself. So I multitasked my whole life. So that's, for me, fortunately, I can still do that.
No, I don't think he wants to get rid of it. And I worry about it because a lot of it is not stored correctly. And I worry about the hot temperatures and the cold temperatures where it is. But no, I think he'd be satisfied if he never sold another piece.
One thing that I can see now more in myself and like with what I want to do, but I could always see it with you, is that like we kind of want to show like what does our world in our head look like. Yeah. And for you, I think you use a lot of water in your world. Yeah. There's a lot of water and levels of water. Yeah. And I don't know, is there, you know, is that, what is that? You know, why?
It's sort of like
water?
It's sort of like it's like a water level that is coming up and it's sort of exhausting, kind of like a smothering.
Another painting where he's got the trailer, he's holding the trailer and he's coming up out of the water. He's not pushing the trailer down, he's bringing it up. I think that, you know, he's getting over whatever disappointment or tragedy that he had at the time, and he's coming back. That's the way I look at it.
I love the transparency, the underwater, above water, the difference, you know, and what happens underwater versus what happens in space.
I mean, I think what he does is paints what he really wants it to be. I feel certain of that, yeah. If I could only, and if we could only have water here, you know, and these fish floating around. He was given a lot of, you know, sort of free rein and create an installation and beautiful dark room, and he could paint the walls. He had a limited time to do it, but he, you know, he had the trailer constructed. He had the components of the trailer, and I think he had painted the vine on the trailer. He'd probably done all that, but then he had to paint this atmosphere. And I'm sure there had to be a water line because that room was full of these great floating plexiglass kind of rings or bubbles. I believe he was working in his trailer. Did he make I think he made a model of himself working in the window of the trailer.
And David would come and sit in the trailer at a certain time, I think only on the weekends. I can't remember how often, or when they had a school tour or something, and he would come and sit in the trailer and work. So you could see, and the trailer was kind of, it was kind of fun.
He did a great installation at the Clay Center also. It included another trailer and a variety of different things, yeah. It was a little like the way a runner trains for a marathon. It is intense, and it is working every single day and moment you can. And for David, he's a quiet person, but it was nerve-wracking for him, and I could see that. He wasn't ever quite sure how it was going to all come together, and I think that really... And then they did this great big vinyl of his face and put it on the front of the Clay Center. So it really, I think he really realized that it was a real thing and it was a big deal, and it was a big deal. It was really nice for Nora. I think that was real formative because she saw her dad being this... she always knew he was an artist, but he was an important artist.
It was exciting because, I got to be there, and I just remember kind of dancing around the gallery that night and seeing all of my best friends, but they were really just all these other great artists that we just were very close with. And that was a great night. And I really saw, how much my dad's work meant to people, too, at a very young age.
Nora and David and I, because we lived kitty corner from the exhibit, went over there a number of times when no one else was in the exhibit. It's really fun. It's like, oh, this is our playground. We are kitty corner from this beautiful museum. I think he really felt it was important, too. And I think he was really worried about it until it actually happened. Like most artists who have to fill a really large space. Yeah.
I've known people that have tried to do what he does, but they've never really succeeded, particularly with the dioramas that he does. But it's his workshop, and it's every little tool, every little teeny tool he made. And, his bench, his workbench, his this and that and the other thing. He has a TV up on the shelf, and Oprah's on the TV. And, and it goes on and on and on. And it's just amazing, just amazing.
Oh, I think he's very intuitive. I think he does not always know what the next thing is. And a lot of stuff happened emotionally for him. We split up. His mom passed away. And as things work their way out, it's nice because you can transcend these things that are problems and that are hardships. And I think he's really done that. He said, you know, I think I did okay with Harvey's Creek, but I need to build another house because I know so much more.
So my dad says he wants to build a house, and it's like, okay, so we're gonna build a house and it's gonna be recycled, and he has all these ideas.
You know, I think he probably started the house when Nora was about 8. So he worked on it really until she was, I would say until she was almost 20. So that was 12 years.
I think I was intrigued and fascinated by the process of it. And I also always loved being in nature and working around nature. Usually I spent every other weekend with my dad. So on those weekends, I'd usually help him. And yeah, I just remember learning so much from that, you know, and taking it all in. We finally cleared the path up to the house. We had to make this a road because it's it's the side of a mountain, and so when water would come down, we had to figure out a way to drain it properly. And so I had to rake the ditches. And that was always a hard job, but we were working together, so it was okay. And that was my first memory of really working with my dad, and kind of some manual labor as well.
And Nora, she had a big hand in helping me. She was a big hand. Her mom as well.
We also had excavators, and I remember just getting in the driver's seat and kind of being able to pretend for a minute that I was really working it, but thinking at a very young age, I can pound a nail, and I kind of know the first steps to building a house, which is really cool, and especially a very remote house.
I wasn't on any schedule, any tight schedule to get something done. I just Nora was growing up. It was a good thing to do for us. So started doing some drawings, trying to figure out what I wanted, and I finally got a drawing that I liked. A lot of the materials are cannibalized from other houses. What I say is this is the only way I know how to do it. You know what I mean?
The new house he built for very, very little money, and it's almost all built from reused things that people have given him. But it all works together great.
It's easier, it's cheaper, it's there for the taking. I had this lady who, she wanted me to tear down this house, and a lot of the doors came out of that house, and some of the old poplar. It's old poplar, it's really nice stuff, but and probably some of the doors are 100 years old. I met this contractor. He came out, he wanted to do some hunting. So he told me he had all this material that he was just going to get rid of it. So he brought me the doors, he brought me the fans. These windows are actually doors. I like the cathedral ceiling, and it's passive solar. So I wanted a lot of focus here, a lot of glass, so that with the wood stove, it does work, passive solar.
And he would take her out there, and she would help, and she would sign, as the house progressed, she would sign the beams or the wood or whatever before it was covered up.
I framed the windows to a certain place, and then I found windows to fit in the hole. and then filled in around with stained glass. I like the look of the floor too. It's like bringing outside inside. Use materials from the property to incorporate it in the whole thing, the whole design.
Then Nora went to college when she was just about 19. So it was almost exactly at the same time. Yeah, actually, when I think about that, when Nora went away, which was shocking to both of us, I think, David started painting. The house just magically was sort of finished. And again, finished is relative because every time we go out, there's something new to see.
Some of these pieces, like these pieces, they're Molly's samples, Molly's color samples, tests for colors. This is turtle shell, and yeah, an old switch, but it's just what works out.
Does that old switch do anything?
No. You'd shit if the light turned on. It'd be nice if it did do something.
And I think he built the house for Nora. She had a lot to say in the house.
Yeah, whatever. It's hers anyway, so.
You know, I think she'll turn out to be a very successful young woman, and I think she will keep it no matter where she is, just because it's a shrine.
I'm really looking at Europe as a place I'm hopefully going to live someday. But, you know, I always say it, I'll always have a home in West Virginia, and that place will probably be, you know, closest to my home that I'll always have here.
I come up here and I'm looking for stuff to do, and it's pretty much done, you know.
As soon as he finished, and it was the next second, he started making paintings. It was the most admirable thing I've seen an artist do. I mean, he was done one day and he was making paintings the next.
It's always been weird because I painted at the trailer, you know, and I painted out Harvey's Creek, and now I haven't transitioned to painting up here, but I think eventually I will.
We were up at the house having a picnic, and the first thing that happened was a tree nearly fell on me, and so he was really spooked by that. It was a terrible storm, so we decided to come down the hill, and there were 3 baby raccoons sitting right in the road. And they were friendly/snarly enough that you could pick them up with gloves. And we had to move them out of the road, but they were coming after us. They were looking for their mom, obviously. It was Mother's Day. And that's his newest painting. I mean, he's making this work about the surprises that happen. And he's really interested in that, too. Just what you do, what you get to see, what you can experience when you're quiet. Maybe that's why he's quiet.
These are raccoons, but I haven't got the face on them yet. They're just heads right now. Yeah, this is a small one. This is what I'm aiming for. This is, and the reason I lined them up in a line is because they would never be in a line. You know what I mean? They would never be like this. They were everywhere, You couldn't. So then Molly got out of the truck and they started after her ankles. So, but I'm starting to work on my art and trying to be an artist again.
It's really interesting. As soon as he gets started on a piece, he talks about it's so much fun. I'm having such a good time. You know, this is the part I love, and I'm not sure when to stop. And I love to make marks. And he, you know, I think a much happier genre of work. He's doing a lot of portraits of people he loves. He's not afraid to do a portrait of someone he loves.
The portraits, they don't have much of a meaning except for me and maybe Nora Molly, and Harold. I did Harold's portrait.
He just finished a portrait of me. I think it's the first portrait he's done of anybody that wasn't a family member. So I'm kind of proud of that.
This is a portrait of my sister, Marcia. Other portraits, I've tried to use a little dimension, a little carving and stuff, but this is more so. And especially the eyes, the eyeball, the center are marbles. I can see the person more, or it seems like to me. See, this is the back of it. To get the look, or to get where I see the portrait, I think that's him or that's her. It's a challenge, and this, what I'm sort of getting into now is different, and it's sort of maybe a little more complex because it's different, like using materials differently and stuff. Mm-hmm. But
do you have like a goal, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I've sort of reached it.
Oh.
You know, it's just like.
Not many people could say that.
Oh, Oh, it's the power. It's a tricky thing, doing art. It's just a thing you have to do. And you probably, I mean, you guys probably feel the same way. What else would you want to do?
Nothing.
Yeah. It's like I have talked so much. I have talked more today than I have I think
In the
all
50
month.
years I've known you.
Yeah.
This is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.